Dang, this week's episode was lit. That's all I can say. There's no other word to describe it. So in my first video, I did mention about doing an episode by episode review of the animes I'm currently watching now, but I didn't actually have any intention of going through with that idea because of how out of place it would seem to start reviewing episodes midway through a season. But then after watching the most recent episode of Quintessential Quintuplets, I was left feeling like I really enjoyed the episode, and you know what? I want to make a video about it. Now, since I'm making this video, that means I intend to review the rest of the season as well. I still haven't watched this week's episodes for the other shows on my list yet, so I'm not sure if I'll review those, but that doesn't mean I'm not enjoying them as much as Quintessential Quintuplets. I just want to be consistent with my uploads and don't want to slack off if I end up reviewing the other shows as well. Now, this video is going to be containing spoilers for episode 8, so if you haven't watched that, I highly recommend you watch the episode before watching this. And I'm not going to break down the episode to every meticulous detail. I'm just going to talk about the points that I thought that really made the episode stand out to me. So continuing from the last episode, Itsuki and Futaro try to figure out who's the fake Itsuki, so he enacts a plan where the real Itsuki distracts her father while he goes to talk to the rest of the sisters. And can I just say that their father is what I can only describe as the literal definition of a heartless hawk. I mean, I don't hate the guy as much as other anime characters out there, but dang, he's very aggravating, like seriously. So Futaro heads to the girls' room and finds that they're all dressed up as Itsuki for some bizarre reason. Now when I saw this, I was like, huh? Why? like either I was as shocked as Futaro or even more shocked. I was like, wait, what? Why are they doing this? Now there is an actual reason why they're doing this, so I mean it's justified, but at the same time it's like, wait, what? So they went from one fake Itsuki to like 4. Now another thing to add here is that I did find it a bit absurd throughout season 1 and mid-season 2 that Futaro still can't properly recognize them, considering that they all have different hairstyles and color, most notably. I get that the personality and voices can be confusing, I get that, but you think by now that he'd at least put a bit more effort to attempt to try distinguish who is who. Now as much as it sounds like I'm exaggerating it to be a huge problem, I actually consider it to be pretty trivial. And I gave Futaro a bit of leeway because he's only known them for like 6 months, maybe a bit more, and it has been shown throughout this season so far that he's somewhat determined in trying to differentiate each of them. But this episode actually spends most of its time trying to bypass that barrier in a pretty creative way, which was to distinguish each of the 5 without relying on physical appearances. And this not only provided a challenge to Futaro specifically, but to us, the audience as well, because more often than not we can pretty easily tell who is who based on voice, personality, and most notably based on appearances. So by removing the appearance factor, we are left to be more attentive when looking at each one of them. And it isn't easy as it sounds. When Nino suggested to reattempt the quintuplets game, I got tripped up a bit as well. So my guesses were the first person being Ichika based on the voice, and she looked a bit chill. I was confused by the second and third person, so I think the second is Miku because she's a pretty good impersonator, and the third being Nino because she looks embarrassed when mimicking Itsuki, which reminded me of when she tried to imitate Yotsuba in season 1. The fourth one was clearly Yotsuba. I mean, she might as well be holding a sign saying she's Yotsuba, given how she just easily blurted out her identity. But she did explain how her grandfather would be concerned and have panic attacks because he thinks the girls are quarreling and looking different, hence dressing up as Itsuki was their solution, which was understandable. So Futaro still cannot figure out who is who, and I can't really blame him, but then someone was about to enter the room, and upon instinct he hides. Now I thought he was hiding in the closet or something, turns out he was actually under the kotatsu table, and I mistook the girl's legs for clutter or closet stuff. I seriously didn't see those legs. Futaro recalls the previous night where apparently the fake Itsuki was bruised after being pushed against the wall, which I was a bit surprised as I didn't think she was pushed back that hard. Learn to be gentle, Futaro. So he opens up a bit of their kimonos to find the bruise, which did cause a bit of discomfort, but he wasn't doing it in that sense. He was actually just trying to find the bruise, to which he did, but he couldn't figure out who was actually the fake Itsuki who had the bruise. So then the girls left with their grandpa to get some breakfast, and one of them was waiting outside, and it actually turned out to be Miku, but I only recognized her because of her voice, and of course Futaro trips up as well. And it's kind of getting to the point where this trope is actually being more humorous than annoying or frustrating, which is a very good thing. So it's at this point of the episode where it kind of branches out into 3 separate directions, and it focuses on Nino, Miku, and Ichika, who actually want different things. So I'll get to that in a bit. So Nino invites Ichika to take a morning bath, to which she starts to ask about how to approach someone you like or love, without actually knowing that Ichika actually overheard Nino's confession to Futaro. And Nino does go on to say how it all started and how she still wants to approach this person. Ichika is feeling pretty uncomfortable for a few reasons. One is because she also likes Futaro and also would like to pursue him eventually, but she does not want anything to change between them because she still wants to remain as friends for now and sort of maintain the status quo, because Miko wants to confess to Futaro and also Nino now wants to pursue him as well, with albeit a more headstrong tactic. And this causes Ichika to break down later on at night, where she was sort of sobbing, and that's when Yotsuba stumbled upon her and tried to make her feel better, along with recalling some of their memories as children and how she always looked as Ichika to be the most mature and oldest of her sisters. Now as for Miko, she doesn't have any intention of confessing to Futaro in this episode anyway, but she does actually want something that is pretty simple but actually more important, and that is for Futaro to be able to recognize her out of all of the other 5. Now I consider this to be more significant compared to what Nino and Ichika want at the moment, because being able to distinguish an individual out of a group in which where each of them are nearly identical to each other has a pretty deeper meaning behind it. So Miku opens up to Itsuki about this and also tells her that she actually likes Futaro, and of course she's a bit shocked, but she does advise Miku to approach Futaro one last time to see if he can get it or not. And also on a side note, based on what this episode has shown, it's pretty safe to assume that Miku doesn't know that Nino actually confessed to Futaro and that she actually likes him, so I'm pretty sure that Ichika kept that information to herself. Futaro practically begs their grandfather for advice, and to which he just says love. So it turns out that the method Yotsuba mentioned in episode 1 came from their mother, which came from him essentially. And I'm inclined to agree with him as well, although that we generally use the term bonds or relationship rather than love, but it's pretty much the same thing. So Miku approaches Futaro the following morning to see if he can get it or not. So he does attempt to analyze and break it down and rule out all the possibilities until he reaches a conclusion, and then he does struggle pretty much, and like initially he seems to be getting it wrong, but at the last second, as Miku was walking away feeling pretty disappointed and actually tearing up, he was able to vaguely remember how Miku was walking the previous day and actually does get it right, though he does kind of pull back at the end. So he was able to break through that barrier, albeit briefly. Miku, feeling pretty happy and relieved that he was able to get it right, despite the fact that she was actually faking to be Ichika as well, charged at him and gave him a hug, to which in my opinion he does deserve. So it's a pretty big step for him to take, and I'm pretty sure that Miku also thinks that if he can get it right once, he can pretty much get it right again, albeit he needs a bit more practice. So the episode ends off with both Futaro and the Quintuplets families about to go home, and it is revealed that their mother's name is actually Rena. So then Futaro contemplates at the Bell of Vows, and the episode ends with someone charging up at him. And of course we don't know who it is until the next episode. So that's pretty much how that episode went. So all in all, it was a pretty good episode, and to me it's one of the best out of all the release episodes so far, because you can really get the feels from it. So that's what I really loved about this episode. And I also like how this episode also engages with the audience sort of, by having us participate in this kind of guess who or Among Us kind of game where we have to figure out who's the imposter or who is who. So that's all for my review for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and leave down your thoughts on what you think of the episode. Okay, so thank you very much. Take care, and I look forward to reviewing the next episode.